Hello and welcome back to today's final splash of paint. Now it's time for me to show you a few simple techniques and demonstrate how easy it is to take man's best friend on an artistic journey. I've sketched in this little dog and the chap taking him for a walk there, and I'm just going to put some colours on. Now a useful thing when you actually draw a little dog, I'll just give you a quick idea of this. If you start off with the letter M, like this, now that gives you the three legs that you would actually see. And then you can pop a little bit of a head on there, and then a bit of a body. And you can easily translate that into a bit of a dog or a cat, a scared cat by the looks of that. But it's just an easy way of getting the legs in the right position. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to use some greeny mixture, size 6 brush. I've got some aureole in there. I'm going to mix it with some natural blue, and that'll give me like a green jacket colour, like a wax jacket kind of thing. And we'll use this colour. I'm just going to put this chap's jacket on there. So just using the size 6 brush, nice pointy brush. And there he is. I'll put some tonal work in that before I finish. I think he's got wellies on as well, so I'll pop those on. There we go. And I will mix some flesh colour, which is always useful to know. Flesh colour is basically, there's lots of variations, but you could use natural yellow and a bit of cadmium red. Or you could use yellow ochre and a bit of alizarin crimson, that would work as well. But only a pale colour for this. So it's just a sort of peachy pink colour that you want. It's a bit of a stereotype that if you're doing a light flesh tone that you're going to use pinks. It's more of a sort of peachy colour. You can make it darker by adding more blue to the colour if you want a darker flesh tone. And that's okay just to sort of drop over the sort of head there. I will put some hair on as well, and I'll put a bit of hand there as well going off. So that's a nice, as you can see, a nice light flesh tone. You can make it darker if you want to. The actual dog is going to be a bit of a browny colour, so natural grey with some burnt sienna. That'll give me a nice dark colour there. And we'll use this browny tinge. And all you do is just fill it in, really. So if I paint in the head there, and then the legs coming over, put a couple of flicks for ears, and then put the back. And of course, no dog is complete without a bit of a tail there. And then we'll pop this fella's walking stick on. I'll put some shadows on this as well. I want some brown trousers, so I'll bring those on as well. If you want to get tonal work into this, what you could do is actually leave little gaps in the centre. Clean your brush, wipe it off on a bit of tissue, or in this case a sponge, and just lightly blend inside, and it just leaves a few lighter areas. To make those trousers look as though it goes under the jacket, you could use some natural grey, very thick, because that is a shadow colour basically, and you could go in and put the darkness underneath there. I could also use the same colour to put the soles of the wellies on. I'm just going to put a bit of water. That's a little bit too thick, that colour. So I'll just add a tiny bit of water just so I can paint in the actual, you can see his foot is lifted up there. We're painting the underneath of the sole there, and then I'm going to put a few shadows on his jacket. I'll blend these in shortly, so I'll put a shadow as the arm sits up at the side. Same on the other side as well. And just going to darken the collar and a bit over the back, and a few little creases going up. Clean brush, wipe it on tissue, sponge, or just through your fingers. And then you can blend in then. So as long as your brush is damp, not wet, it's a good time to blend paint, and you can just lightly soften the grey. This is one of the great things about watercolour, the way you can add shadows over the top of any object to make it look 3D. And hopefully you can see that that's making a bit of a difference there. It's making it look as though it's got all the folds and creases in the jacket as we come over. Just blend the shadow there, making sure everything's okay on the legs, maybe drop in a few creases in the trousers. Not looking too bad at that point. I'll darken one side of the wellies. I've done the left side, clean the brush off, and then just smudge in. Now back to the dog, Rex, his name. I'm just going to add a few shadows. So kind of under the belly, you tend to put a shadow, and just under the chin, and then on the back leg. Now, if you can see that, it does give that impression of the darker areas as the legs stand forward and the belly goes underneath. It wants a few shadows, and the chap wants a bit of a hairdo. So I'll put some dark, it's the same brown that I painted the dog with. Areas looking that way. There's the scared cat still. I'm just going to put some shadows on, clean brush, bit of natural grey, much lighter for the grey, and then we'll just drop shadows, and then that's kind of the job done. Now go anyway, the shadows, we'll bring them this way, so the light's coming from the front there. And also one from the walking stick as well. And what I tend to do with the shadows, once I've put them on, basically clean the brush, wipe it over the tissue through your fingers or on the sponge, and then just give it a bit of a soften. That's almost giving a bit of an evening light effect, which is quite nice, like a really striking, strong shadow. There you go, folks. Makes a nice little scene, that. And of course it gives scale to the picture as well. Okay, before we wrap up today's programme, we've just got time to dip into the Splash of Paint post bag to answer a few more of your artistic questions. Deborah Burns has been in touch to ask how long does gesso take to dry. Now generally it's a couple of hours, around the same time as it would take acrylic painting to dry, but this obviously depends on how thick it's been applied. The thicker it's applied, the longer it will take, and also the humidity of the conditions it was painted in, and also the air temperature as well. So to be sure that gesso is dry, it may be worth applying the gesso the day before you wish to start your painting. In case anyone isn't sure, it acts as a sealer or a ground for absorbent surfaces like canvas and paper and wood and metal, and it provides the proper surface texture and absorbency for acrylic and oil paints. Second question today is from Paul Clark saying, I've heard people talk about fugitive colours when referring to paints. What is this? Fugitive colour means a colour that is made of pigment that is susceptible to fading when exposed to ultraviolet light rays like the sun. These are not light fast, which means they are not permanent, and what this means in practice is that if you use fugitive colours in your work, they will look absolutely fine when you create the work. However, when the work is continually exposed to the light, the colour saturation will reduce, the work will dull, and eventually the actual pigment will eventually disappear. This is a result of a chemical change and not a bleaching effect of the light. Remember, if you want any help or artistic advice, you can always contact us at the Splash of Paint studio. Simply email us at splashofpaint@saa.co.uk, and we'll do our very best to try and solve your artistic dilemmas. In the meantime, for more artistic inspiration and advice and top tips, you can always visit the saa.co.uk website. Well, folks, that's all we've got time for today, but join us next time when Malcolm Cudmore conjures up another sketching exercise and Jeremy Ford shares his secret top tip for painting perfect grasses in watercolour. Tune in next time for another colourful edition of A Splash of Paint.
Whether you're a beginner, improver or professional, discover more about the full range of SAA membership benefits available to bring a bigger splash of paint into your life. Visit www.saa.co.uk for details.